Hi, how you doing? And welcome back to another video on the channel. So today it's the wildcard video for game week 7. Even if you're not wildcarding, maybe you used it in game week 6, maybe you're planning on using it later in the season. Hopefully this video will still help you out with your transfer thoughts. If it does and you're new to the channel, please do subscribe. The support has been amazing. I do make all my own charts as well, so if it does help you out, any support would be greatly appreciated. And this team is 100% rated. I am recording this video before Sunday's games, so any injuries that might happen, I'll put alternative players in the comments, but we do discuss some different options throughout the video as well. All the charts are just for 5 game weeks worth of data as well, because I didn't think it was fair to put all the information from Saturday into the charts and leave out the players who were playing on Sunday to give inaccurate readings. Anyway, let's get on with the team. And as I said, it's 100% rated. And not only that, it's 98.2 million. So hopefully, unless you've had a real disaster start to the season, everyone can afford it. So shout out to Fantasy Football Hub for their team rater tool. And in goal, we are of course going for Raya. Now, there's no surprises here. We don't need to discuss in depth about why you should go for Raya. He is just the cheapest way into the Arsenal defence, and he's probably the most reliable way as well. The fixtures look great, they're keeping clean sheets, and when we take a look at the data for saves per game versus clean sheets, we can see that Raya is ranking pretty consistently across both. Now, we have discussed this previously when you look at a player like Vicario, he's probably making too many saves per game, which would suggest that Tottenham are conceding quite a lot of chances and relying on Vicario, and therefore the clean sheets are at risk. Raya's sort of in that perfect balance between getting clean sheets and contributing to save points. But really, anyone in this rectangle here is a pretty solid pick. So if you didn't want to go for Raya, maybe you wanted 3 Arsenal outfield players, I think any of the 5 goalkeepers highlighted here are a great shout as well. So into defence, and I've highlighted Dan Burn because I don't necessarily think we're talking about Newcastle enough at the moment. Their fixtures look pretty good and they're doing really well defensively. He had 4 clean sheets in his first 5 games, and the law of averages would say that that's probably not going to continue, and he's probably going to have a few less clean sheets than you might expect, but it shouldn't be anytime too soon. Newcastle looking really solid and only 6% owned at 5 million. I think he's someone who offers 9 defensive contributions per game. He's a really good option. I've gone for Gabriel and Senesi in there as well, and Tarkowski and Ekdal are on the bench. All of them are pretty good for defensive contributions, and there is some attacking threat in there as well from Gabriel and Senesi. So when we take a look at the chart, we can see for defensive contributions per start versus bonus points system points, all 5 defenders are ranking pretty well. Now, bonus points system points are not bonus points. These are the points that contribute to bonus points. So players accumulate them throughout a game. And if you've got the top 3 most bonus point system points by the end of the game, you get bonus points. So feel free to pause the video at any point just to take a look at this chart in a bit more detail. But the point is that all 5 of these players are ranking pretty highly for defensive contributions, and they're all contributing to getting potential bonus points as well. Now, when we change the chart here, and we can see that bonus points system points versus actual bonus points, so this shows the players who are turning their positive actions into bonus points at the end of the games. We can see that Senesi is ranking really well. So that tells me that all of his positive actions contributing in actual bonus points. You look at someone like Tarkowski towards the bottom of the chart, and that tells me that whilst he is having a really positive contribution, he's almost underperforming his bonus points. It's a bit like expected goals, but for defenders. So someone who is underperforming their expected bonus points is someone who maybe is due for bonus points in the future. And if Tarkowski does keep a clean sheet or maybe get an attacking return, he will probably be getting 3 bonus points as well. And then you look at Ekdal or Gabriel, Dan Burn, they're kind of just in and amongst it. It is harder for defenders to get bonus points. I understand, we're just comparing defenders to defenders here. We're not looking at all of the other players in FPL. But I did think it was at least an interesting chart just to see who is leading the way in bonus points for defenders, but also who is maybe underperforming what they're supposed to be getting when looking at bonus points. So enough talk about bonus points. We're going to look at the midfielders, and I've highlighted Anthony Gordon here. Now, at 7.4 million, he might be looking a little bit too expensive for some of you, but we can afford it in this team. Like I said at the start, it's only 98 million cost. So he's only 1% owned. And you might be thinking, well, he's obviously not very good if he's 1% owned, but half of the battle with FPL is predicting where points are going to come from next. When he is not suspended, he'll be starting for Newcastle week in and week out. And like we said with Dan Burn, the fixtures look great. So if you want to be getting on someone early, I would recommend Anthony Gordon. Even if you've got a free transfer, I don't think it's the worst transfer in the world. The rest of the midfield, Reinders, Semenyo, and Kudus, are really popular picks. And, it does get a little bit boring when everyone has the same players. And you definitely shouldn't go different for different sake. You should only go different when you actually believe in the player you're getting in. But I think it is totally fine if your midfield looks quite solid and quite well owned to just have one or two players in your squad that are real differentials because that's how you're going to get ahead of other people in your mini league. And you're not going to fall too far behind because you already own three very popular midfielders. I've also gone for James Garner on the bench, really underrated player in terms of defensive contributions. And I know he started the season at left back, and that probably helped. But even in the most recent games when he's been in midfield, he's still been getting those bonus points. And at 5 million, he's a lot cheaper than your Caicedos, your Elliot Andersons. And therefore, if you were on a bit of a tighter budget or you wanted to upgrade another player elsewhere, you could get in James Garner and therefore it would give you that 500,000 that you might need. So when we take a look at the chart here, I'm comparing expected goal involvements to defensive contributions per start. So this will show which players are contributing on both sides of the ball, both the attacking and defensive side. When I highlight the four players here, because Anthony Gordon's not played enough this season, he's only played about one game and 25 minutes in another game. So the other four midfielders are ranking okay. Semenyo, we know what he's doing from an attacking point of view. Expected goal involvements is really high. And he's also doing all right for defensive contributions. He's getting about 7, 8 defensive contributions per game. And it's not impossible that he can get you those 2 bonus points. James Garner at the bottom right, he's not that far off Caicedo. Everybody is saying how well Caicedo is doing for defensive contributions, and he is. But James Garner on a budget, I think, is a really undervalued pick. Reinders and Kudus are sort of in the middle, both sides. I think if you were going to get rid of them for someone else, I don't mind it. It really just depends on where you would go. I think if you wanted to compare them to other players, I quite like maybe a Kevin Schade from Brentford. He's a bit more expensive at 7 mil, but you could afford it with this team. Or an Ndai or a Grealish from Everton if you wanted to get the triple up for Everton in this team alongside Garner and Tarkowski. Other than that, the players that are in the bulk of the data here, just look at the fixtures and what I would say is just go with someone who you think is underperforming at the moment, but the data says they will do well and they also have great fixtures. And I think you can't go wrong. So up front, it's the standard three players. Unfortunately, a little bit boring, but again, there's no point going different for different sake. The striker pool at the moment is really small, and because we've got about 1.5 million in the bank, it is easy to upgrade Gyökeres to an Alexander Isak if you wanted to get in a Liverpool player. But at the moment, I wouldn't transfer out Gyökeres if you own him. I think having him in your team is really good. People are sort of saying that he's underperforming, but 3 goals in 5 appearances so far this season with those fixtures is a really good return with really good potential coming up. So I think Gyökeres is probably a must. Maybe you want to take out João Pedro, but because he's the highest owned player in FPL, you also have to balance getting points with which players are going to hurt you the most if you don't own them and they do well. So unfortunately, at the moment, João Pedro is that player. When we take a look at the chart for expected goal involvements and actual goal contributions in forwards, we can see that João Pedro, Gyökeres, and Haaland are all ranked pretty highly. The only players you would compare them to are Richarlison and Ekitike, both of whom I would just avoid. I think they're too risky. They're a differential, but it's not a differential that's worth taking. I think you'd be much better off to drop down and go for an Evan Nielsen or a Voltemada, maybe even a Jared Bowen. Now that West Ham are changing their manager, maybe he becomes more of an option. That'll be interesting to see in the next few weeks, but I wouldn't risk it now and therefore potentially miss out on these points. Haaland doesn't include Saturday's data where he got 2 goals and an assist to go on top of this. Until that point, he was actually just performing what he was expected to be getting. So he wasn't overperforming it, even though it's looking like he's doing quite well. So you add on those extra goal contributions on top of that, and he's such an easy pick at the moment with these fixtures. Whether he remains to be seen as that over the long term, I'm not too sure. I've kind of been saying throughout the season I don't think he can maintain it, and I don't really think he can for his price. But it's obvious that he's doing really well, and we want points in FPL, so sometimes we just have to change our viewpoints, at least for the short term. So overall, the strengths of this team are it's backed up by data. Being 100% rated is obviously means we're on the right tracks. I also think the charts include the players that we talked about and they're ranking really well. It also includes some different options in there. If you didn't want a Kudus or a Reinders or an Anthony Gordon, there are loads of different midfielders around that price that I think can still be good and will still do really well because at the end of the day, getting 100% rated isn't everything. Data doesn't guarantee points in FPL, it just gives us a good idea. I also think the excellent depth to the team, having a Garner and a Tarkowski on the bench, is really good, even though they're both from Everton. Everton are doing really solid this year, so being able to put them in when you feel like it is a good, solid strength, and they rotate quite well with some of the other players in this squad. The weaknesses for me is there's no Salah. Now, some of you might be thinking that's not a weakness. Salah isn't doing very well, and he is just underperforming at the moment, and he's been getting, attacking returns in the last few minutes of games, and that's not sustainable. However, his fixtures do turn in a few weeks, and you maybe need to think of a plan to get him in. If you want to also keep Haaland, that's going to take some transfers saved up. If you want to move just from Haaland to Salah and sell Haaland, it's a lot easier. I would just have a plan in your mind because one week Salah probably will score a hat trick and everyone will start thinking about getting him in, and you don't want to be get left behind if that's also what you want. And there's also potentially long term issues with this team. Things like defensive contributions. I'm not too sure how much they're going to last in the sense that these players who are getting defensive contributions every week, are they going to get defensive contributions every week for the whole season? I'm actually really interested to see how that pans out. So if you are just getting defenders in for defensive contributions and no clean sheet potential, how is that going to pay out as the season goes on? Anyway, that's the video. Hopefully you've enjoyed it and at least it's helped you out with some transfer thoughts, even if you're not wildcarding. If it has, please do subscribe. Go check out the other videos on the channel if you want to see some charts. Go ask some questions as well. If there's any charts you want to see in the videos, just drop a comment and I'll do my best to find out the data for you. So hopefully you're having a good Fantasy League weekend and I will see you in the next one.